What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Soul Hoops. My name is Jeffrey. I'm joined by Mattias and Ryan today. Got another great episode. Ryan's back in the virtual studio with us. Recording our top 10 small forwards list, going through all the good news, if there is any, as we do, and anything else we got that may come up over the time. Mattias, Ryan, how you guys doing today?
Doing good. Just kind of feels good to have everyone back, be able to get some good discourse in.
Of course.
Yeah. It feels good to be back too. I love my time out in the Northwest. I met up with my guy Mattias. We hooked it up. It went a certain way, but we've got a 1v1 video coming out eventually that you guys will be able to see. So
yes, sir. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you had a good time on vacation. It is good to see everybody back so we can get all this good discourse going, bounce more ideas. So the first thing we're going to be talking about today is today, actually, before we started recording, they got announced all of the opening day games and Christmas Day games, which are the two main holiday set games for the start of the season. So to open up the season, there's going to be two games on October 24th on TNT, and that's going to be Lakers Nuggets and Suns Warriors. They're going to be the two opening night games. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on those games.
I think Lakers Nuggets I think that's a pretty predictable opening night game. They like to have the ring ceremony for the defending champs, like usually against the team that they beat in the conference finals, whoever that may be. So I kind of saw this coming, but you can't deny how good of a matchup it is. Lakers and Nuggets. There was a lot of talk about this series, even after it was a 4-0 sweep, even after it was way over. People are still talking about that series, about how it was the closest sweep of all time. How the Lakers found something with Hachimura on Jokic. That's one of the funnier series that I can remember.
Oh yeah, even with the added comments from all the Nuggets after the finals, the victory laps were hilarious.
The Lakers Twitter is probably the most comedic joke of individuals of all time.
Oh yeah,
it's like you're done 3-0 and or 3-0 and you're like, maybe if we put our small forward on him.
Yeah,
we'll get it done.
Let's make him a scorer because no one's tried that before. Thank you very much. Crazy.
The Suns Warriors game though, I actually really like. I feel like that's also, I don't want to say a predictable matchup, but like it's on the short list of everybody's matchup when looking.
That was fun for sure.
It's in Golden State as well, which I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, KD has not played at Golden State since he left.
That's true.
Oh, even better. But you got a couple things there. You got the Draymond KD, even though like they were pictured, I'm sure it looks like fine.
I'm pretty sure they had like an interview together, but
they were sitting courtside at at the Team USA game. So I think they're cool, but there's still history there, and also
KD obviously has his history in Golden State, and then you also have to deal with the Book Clay stuff.
Yeah.
That almost seems like it's transitioned to Paul George and Book, though. From that was funny.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that for too long, but Booker, his response to that was kind of weird. Like, is that the reaction you wanted? Like, what is like? It's an interview. Like, I don't know. That's what you do.
Ask questions.
Yeah. I don't know. But also, Chris Paul revenge game.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. There's a lot to that game.
I forget that he's even on that team, man. I really do. It's such a weird.
He's coming off the bench. That's why.
I don't think he's going to.
I think
they want him to because they're sick of the ultra small ball. But I'm like, I literally think he's gonna like bitch and moan about it.
I don't think Steve Kerr would have much issue with just telling CP, hey, you're going to the bench.
Yeah, probably not. Well, you never know. I think there's actually a pretty decent chance too that if the CP experiment doesn't work out, he's traded by it's at the deadline again.
Yeah, and I think there's a good chance that Chris Paul closes a lot of games, though.
Oh,
too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. They like that small ball lineup at the end of games anyways, and Chris Paul instead of Jordan Poole is a better option for how they want to do what they do.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Then the second thing. Sorry, I just lost it. The second thing is all of the Christmas Day games were also announced today. So there's 5 games per usual. It's Bucks Knicks, 76ers Heat, Celtics Lakers, Mavs Suns, Warriors and Nuggets. Usually Christmas Day games are used for rivalry type games or teams that have history together. And I feel like none of these really are like that other than the Mavs Suns one and the
Yeah,
Celtics Lakers, I guess. But like the Celtics Lakers rivalry is like this forced historical rivalry from like 40 years ago. Like it doesn't really exist anymore. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I feel like it's also we're witnessing new rivalries be made, and as they're being made, it kind of feels weird because we're always thinking about like 5 years ago. But
yeah.
in terms of these rosters, a lot of these teams are different than the rivalries that they had.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm happy that my team gets to play. Watching the Bucks on Christmas is fun, and Giannis always goes crazy in Madison Square Garden, like literally every time. So that'll be fun to watch. Sixers and Heat's probably going to be a snooze fest.
That's the middest game.
Yeah, like it's like 2 pretty good teams, but in my opinion, it's literally just going to be like foul baiting and like defensive grinding all game. It's just going to be boring to watch.
Yeah.
Celtics Lakers will probably be good because those games are Celtics are going to be good, obviously, and Lakers are going to be good.
Yeah.
Mavs Suns will be fun, obviously.
That's a great matchup. You've got 2 things going on there. You've got the KD and Kyrie thing, and you've also got the Luka and Devin Booker little like
Luka and the whole
rivalry
Suns
or
roster.
bad blood. Yeah, really. So
Man, the more I keep looking at these rosters going into the season, the more and more excited I get about the Mavericks. Like, I think that with how good like those top 2 guys are and like the type of players they filled out that roster with, like, just gets me more and more excited. Especially like if they do make a trade for a veteran center, I think that could start to look really, really nice. Like, especially if they trade, because I think people get too hung up on like what the roster looks like right at the start of the season. But it's like they could make the move to help them out mid-season or in December or something like that. When the free agent players are eligible to be traded or extension players, all of that stuff. So I think
same thing could be said about the Heat. Damian Lillard. That'll be a fun game. It could be a Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid scoring.
That's true if he's on the team.
It could be, but yeah, I mean, we just have no idea what the Heat roster is going to look like, and even the Sixers roster is up in the air a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that hasn't been talked about enough. The Sixers roster is super up in the air, and I feel it's been almost glossed over.
Do you think that if the Sixers trade Harden and they don't get an all-star quality player back, do you think they'll be a top 4 seed? Because I think you can make an argument for 4 teams above them pretty easily.
Yeah, but I think they'd be like at worst a 6 seed. Really, I don't think they'd fall. They're
not
playing a team.
No, I don't think that. But like, if let's say in this hypothetical that everything happens, that all the guys requesting trades all go to places that aren't their original team. So Dame's on Miami, Harden goes to the Clippers. Let's say that's hypothetical world.
Yeah.
And the Harden package is some high-level role players and a young piece and a pick maybe. Are the Sixers better than Milwaukee?
No.
Boston?
No.
Are they better than Cleveland?
No. Cleveland maybe.
I don't think they'd be better than Cleveland, man.
I think they could be better than New York.
Oh, I think they would be better than New York pretty easily.
Yeah.
I think also you got to think Maxey. Obviously, they'd lose a step offensively with Harden, but I think Tobias Harris is a player that can take a step up into his role, and I think Maxey's someone that's been waiting to have a role open up for him.
Yeah,
he's always been in the talks of the Anthony Tyler Hero, and those are also guys that have been kind of just waiting to get a bigger role offensively.
Yeah. And also, they'd get things back from Harden too. They'd probably get like Terrence Mann and a few other players that could step up for them. And
Norman Powell.
And Joel Embiid is so good, and there are so few answers for him when it comes to trying to slow him down, that like he could really just carry the Sixers to like 46, 47 wins by himself.
especially in the regular season, because
Yeah.
you can't slow him down. You can't slow anybody down with doubles in the regular season like you can in the playoffs.
Mhm.
So it's just
He might be a player that needs to be surrounded by more like faceted skill set role players rather than other stars. Like some stars just play better when they're surrounded by elite role players that can kind of be Swiss Army knives. And I don't think we've really seen Joel Embiid surrounded by one like that.
yeah, I don't disagree. I think the one thing that was really nice this year, I think the reason why him and Harden work so well is because Harden's skill set has been simplified so much over the last year. Like he's pretty much a playmaker and can score, but he's not like a high volume scorer anymore. So it's just it's more simplified. But yeah, I would kind of agree. Like Jokic plays with a very like he is more of like a I need a bunch of high level people at certain things rather than like I just need stars around me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And then the last game is Warriors Nuggets, which
that'll be a good game.
It'll be a good game just because the teams are good, and like Steph and Jokic are obviously like two of the must watch stars in the league, but there isn't really there isn't much history there, or there's not really a narrative that like exists that
They knocked them out of the playoffs 2 years ago.
They did, but the Nuggets were super injured, and like I don't know. I don't really see that as much else. But
it'll be a good game though because this is going to be I think this is going to be a way better Warriors team than previous years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also just super marketable, and that's kind of like the goal for Christmas: get as many people watching as possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why the Knicks are every year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Knicks Bucks is almost every year, right?
no,
they're always playing.
Sometimes they do
whatever it's called.
We've played the Sixers the last year, a couple of years. We played Miami. We played Boston.
They played the Hawks in 2022, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We usually play one of the bigger market teams because we're really good, but we're not that big of a market, so they just pair us.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into the next thing then. We've been with no basketball news or anything to talk about really, or games going on. We've been watching a lot of FIBA stuff that started up. I've been enjoying there's a lot of the friendly scrimmages that went on between the select team and the regular roster, which we've spoken about already, about those rosters and different players, which you can check out those videos on the previous podcasts and our clips on the FIBA. But during the scrimmages, it seems like Cade Cunningham was dominant compared, like he was the best player on the court, which was good to hear. I'm glad that he's rehabbing well and he looks back to his old self because Cade, if he can be that type of offensive player in the regular season, like he can be he'll be special if he can get to that level.
Yeah, we saw some cool things from the scrimmages for sure. I know I've definitely been keeping up with all the Team USA stuff pretty closely, like the practices, the scrimmages, what kind of lineup Steve Kerr has been going with in those practices. And yeah, I mean, from what I read is Steve Kerr, he like at all times, he's going to either have Brunson or Halliburton on the court, which I think we kind of expected.
Yeah.
And then he's also going to have either Walker Kessler or Jaren Jackson on the court at all times.
Makes sense.
And probably not play them together. The first day of the scrimmages when the regular team would play the select team, Steve Kerr went with a lineup of Brunson, Bridges, Ingram, Cam Johnson, Jaren Jackson.
Yeah, no Ant.
And when that team played the select team, that the main roster struggled quite a bit, I hear. Cade Cunningham, like you mentioned, has looked super, super good in the scrimmages. I've watched a lot of film of him in the scrimmages. He looks super in control of all time. The jumper is really looking good from him. The handle, he's a big guard. He's strong. He's pretty much like he's only 21, 22, and he has the strength and size to keep up with like a lot of the older, bigger players that he was taking off the block to the rim.
Yeah, which is why Cade has such high upside, is because he's so big. when he's so strong. He's such a skilled passer.
He's so big, and he's someone that's actually sneaky athletic because he doesn't use his burst because he's so at his own tempo and he's just smooth. And I was watching the scrimmage film, and it doesn't even look like he's trying. Like it almost looks casual, just dribbling up and down the
Shea
court.
like.
Yeah. A little like a Shea Luka.
Yes.
It's beautiful to watch.
Yeah. And then when what I saw, which definitely I was happy to see as a Wolves fan, when Kerr shook up the starting lineup a little bit and he took out Cam Johnson, moved Bridges and Ingram down and put in Ant, the main team went undefeated against the select team, which is like that's what they're supposed to do in theory, but and I think for the actual tournament when it starts, it's pretty likely that Brunson, Edwards, Bridges, Ingram, and Jaren Jackson is the starting five that Kerr goes with full time.
Yeah. I do want to talk about Jaren Jackson. He was voted the best
player. Yeah.
Yep.
Huge news if you're a Grizzlies fan because with Jaws suspension, a lot of load is going to be on Jaren Jackson to carry the offense, and he looks ready. And even watching the Puerto Rico scrimmage, he looked very comfortable on the block, and I feel like they went to him actually when they were down or they needed a bucket early on. They went down early. I can't remember the exact score, but it was like, oh, Team USA does not look good. And they just fed it to Jaren 3 possessions in a row. Bucket.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened when in the third quarter. Like halftime, like the first half, it was really like neck and neck pretty much the entire way.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, in that third quarter, they started going to Jackson a lot more with the post-ups. Edwards had like, I think 7 or 8 straight points almost in that third quarter too. The offense really started to click and kind of get things going. Something that I noticed for sure is that I think Steve Kerr must be really getting on the guys in the team about emphasizing ball movement because the players on that USA team, they're really passing that ball around. It's for the most part, it's pretty unselfish play, which is interesting for certain guys in the team who aren't, I don't think, as used to playing that style of basketball, like Apollo, like Ingram, like an Ant too. Seeing them kind of open up their playmaking a little bit in their passing in a way we haven't seen before on their usual teams.
And that's something I actually want. I've always been asking for the Magic to do last year, and they did a little bit, but point Paulo.
Yeah.
And honestly, Team USA, they had him playing at center, so I hope he takes some experience from all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, him running the small ball at 5. I mean, here's what I'll say. Obviously, you take the defensive. I said this when we were watching the games because we were watching the games kind of all along together, talking while it was going. And I said, I was like, I'm not taking too much defensive impact into like when they're playing Puerto Rico, but like Paulo looked good on defense as a small ball 5. Obviously, the guys they're playing aren't like real NBA level bigs, but he looks like he can handle himself a little bit.
I mean, he's not a small player, 6'10", wide frame, long arms, and he's athletic. I don't think a small ball 5 is out of the realm. I think he's someone that he's a really advanced skill set, and I really want him to dabble into it because Orlando has some to, even with Franz as well, they could have the scary skill set in the wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this would be good for Paulo's development, and I think he'll take his next step. I mean, I think obviously a lot of people are high on the Magic going like into next season. They were a fringe playoff team. They were about a 500 team the second half of the season, or whenever Markel came back. So like you know a little bit more than a half a season.
Like the last 50 games, they actually like one game above 500, and the reason for that was because of their defense.
Yeah, they're a very good defensive team, and I think when they start to learn how to play make better and work off of each other more, especially Paulo and Franz, I think that it'll be great. I mean, it's just really tough because there's a lot of really good teams in the NBA right now, and the East is like with those middling teams, like I just don't think they're on the level of those play-in teams in the East yet. unfortunately, unless they take big steps all around, which would be awesome, but I don't really see it happening, honestly.
Yeah, I kind of see their ceiling next year as like I think I would say like the 7th seed is probably their ceiling. If I
Yeah,
had
that
to
would be like the
try to
best
say
case.
so.
That would be like everything flew their way. They stayed completely healthy. A couple of those middling East teams got hurt, had some injuries that impacted them,
Yeah,
and they went on like a crazy win streak or something like that to boost them up above some guys, or
mhm.
they were the A seed and they won the play-in games or something like
Yeah,
that.
but they could also completely fall out of the play-in race just because that's the nature of the league, right? Like
Yeah,
they're like I remember like when I first kind of got into basketball, like 2016, 2017, there were just some teams that were like truly awful. Like there were actually like probably 10 teams at all times in the league that were like truly awful.
yeah,
And
and
now
yours was one of them.
yeah, yours was too, if I remember.
Not in that time. A little bit before then, but yeah.
2016. I mean,
That was Thon Maker's draft class. We
okay,
just pretend
right.
that we just pretend that year didn't happen. He got.
Yeah.
Can we hold on? Thon Maker talk really quick. Absolute Milwaukee Buck legend. Kevin Garnett really got up on a talk show and said Thon Maker had MVP potential. I want to just point that out, by the way.
Potential, yeah. I mean, he was a 7'1"
He
who
said that he was going to
theoretically
be better than Giannis.
theoretically he could have shot the ball and had a
That's
handle.
true. Well, too
Could've.
bad he was like 35 years old when he was.
Yeah, nobody really knew his age.
No.
Yeah. I think he plays overseas now. I always see his.
Yeah, I saw a highlight of him the other day.
Yeah. Man, there's a series. The first year that the Bucks made the playoffs with that team was like Giannis's MIP year. Thon Maker was going crazy against the Celtics that year, dude. We took him to 7 games. It was a good series. That was the year, the 2018 year when it was like it was like rookie Jason Tatum and Terry Rozier, because that was like the start of the Eric Bledsoe downfall. So.
Yeah.
No, that was the year.
Oh, the Eric Bledsoe downfall was one of the hardest things to watch.
That dude is one of the craziest playoff droppers I've ever seen in my life. I actually, it's honestly impressive. It's almost impressive. I genuinely, I don't even understand.
I'm glad that Eric Bledsoe got a mention on the podcast.
Yeah, dude. Man, he was the centerpiece of a Drew Holiday trade. We said nothing else.
Ugh. Okay. Anyway, so
FIBA talk.
Yeah.
Follow at the 5.
Magic, yeah, wherever we were. There are less bad teams in the league now than there were like a few years ago. So I don't think it's as much of a guarantee now, where it's like a team has young players and they're on the way up. You can kind of write them in. Like this is not going to happen this year.
Yeah.
They could make a run. Their defense could just be really good.
They're also one of those teams that's gonna. Oh my goodness! I just knocked my camera on my bed. They're also one of those teams that's probably gonna have to sell off some young players, either this year, at the end of this year, or next year.
They've got decisions to make with their guards. Yeah,
guards and wings too, because their draft position really hasn't been in a place where they can draft bigs right now. Outside of Paulo, which he's not really a big. I mean, he plays the 4, but he's not really a big. And like, they've been in positions in the draft to take wings or guards every single time. I mean, if they would have taken the only true big that they could have gotten to develop alongside with like Wendell is like in the draft last year at 6 was Derek Lively. They could have got him at 11, but he got taken. I think they passed on him for Jet Howard.
Yeah.
So like, it's going to be interesting, especially because the team does have spacing issues.
They have some serious spacing issues.
So that's why I think there's a good chance that they have 3 point guards on the roster right now, all young guys, Markelle, Anthony Black, and Jalen Suggs. All are not great shooters, and all are high-level playmakers or playmaking potential and good defenders. So
yeah.
It's
they have too much of one archetype. They need to find
one or two of those
third or backup point guard that plays off ball.
Cole Anthony can be the backup. Cole Anthony is like the perfect backup guard. I think they just have to.
I think he'll stay around long term.
Yes, yeah. I think too. I still think so too. I think it'll be one of those 3 guys that gets moved because they have such similar swing set. Doubt it's Anthony Black. Yeah. He just got drafted. it's probably going to be between Markelle and Jalen, which sucks because Jalen Suggs was the number 4 overall pick or 5.
Yeah,
five.
five.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and they've got some
tangibles though.
Yeah, they've got some big depth issues too, a little bit, which they can fix later, I think. But other than Wendell Carter at the 5, they don't have Bull anymore, so they have to look to Goga Badatsi or Mo Wagner for backup 5, and that's not
I
very
feel like
good.
they have someone else. I feel like they have.
Yeah, I feel like their thought process. Just look at their roster in terms of what they want to do. I feel like the target for next draft or next offseason has to be a center, whether it's in a trade. Maybe they go after something like an Ayton or something along those lines.
I was really confused for a second. I saw that I was like Mo Bamba. He's not.
Yeah, he's gone.
No.
This is last year's starting day roster.
But I think without the lack of center or any real depth, they don't have real aspirations to make the playoffs this year. Like if they make a play-in or a playoff team, they're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
Like that's not what they're thinking.
They'll be happy to be there, but I don't think it's it's not a do or die season by any means.
No, and I don't even feel like the roster they're even really putting in a lot of chips. They're just checking and they're winning.
They got Joe Ingles this offseason to be a vet guy. That'll add some spacing.
They also have Jonathan Isaac back, who's going to be healthy.
I don't care about him. So
yeah,
he's annoying.
He is annoying, but he is good at basketball. I mean,
is he? He hasn't played in 3 years.
Last time he played basketball, he was good. So we'll give him that.
Well, he did play. He did play this season for like 6 games, then he hurt his knee again.
He was okay. I mean,
he looked all right.
Yeah, he's never going to get back to what he was in 2019. But he could still be a decent player.
Yeah, he can be a good role player, defensive player off the bench for sure.
He's starting his broadcasting career on the live cable network, unnamed, that I will not drop. Okay. Next thing we're talking about then is do you have any other thoughts on FIBA at all?
I want to talk about Austin Reeves.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hate for Austin Reeves, and I thought he played pretty well. I'm not gonna lie.
He did play pretty well.
I thought he looked good.
I just like trolling Lakers fans, so I just tweeted about how he was bad.
There's been a lot of just hate with Austin Reeves' name, where everyone's just using him as bait for either hate or just to try to get people to hate on him.
It's not his fault because it's he's good. Austin Reeves is actually really
he is
pretty good. Yeah. But he gets put in these conversations where it's just you're good, but you're not that good.
No. But I will say he came off the bench in Puerto Rico and he immediately put up some numbers.
Yeah, he's a really good off-ball player. So he'll work well. He's one of those guys that's why is he on a FIBA roster or an Olympics roster when he's maybe a little bit older? But it's he'll just be one of those guys that's just does something that's really useful in whatever system.
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton
needed on any team.
He did not look good. He did not look good.
Yeah, I mean, he had 12 assists or something like that.
So
a lot of assists, but
I know, but that was just because they're so dominant on Puerto Rico on the defensive end that they were just giving it to Tyrese in the fast break, and he was just dumping it off. He wasn't. It was okay. That's the thing. Tyrese is a really good player, but his play style isn't really for FIBA or Olympics because he's not. You can't be you can't be that type of playmaker in the Olympics. It doesn't work. Or FIBA play, world play. It just doesn't work well.
Yeah, it's a lot more structured basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so the team looked really good against Puerto Rico, but that is Puerto Rico, right? Their would-be best player, Jose Alvarado, isn't playing in FIBA this year because he had an injury at the end of last year, so he wasn't even there to be Puerto Rico's guy. So, we'll have to see what this USA roster looks like against a tougher team. Because there's going to be some tough teams this year.
Canada looked horrible.
But I am pretty confident that they'll.
Also, I'm pretty sure Jamal Murray didn't play, and I don't think Shea played either.
Yeah, and Germany's a solid roster, so it's not like they're playing.
Yeah, their defense was crazy.
Yeah, Team Germany. Dennis Schroeder is a different player. He's really good when it comes to overseas ball.
Like he's the equivalent of like Team France. What's his name? Evan Fournier.
Fournier.
Yeah.
Dude,
France is
that
good.
one Evan Fournier performance was crazy a couple years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. So FIBA's still going on. It's really the only basketball going on. But it's been pretty fun to watch too, because. And don't get it twisted. People always hate on because the new age guys are taking over these Olympics and Team USA rosters all around. But USA still runs this basketball stuff. Okay, so let's not get it twisted. All right. All right. So next thing is some trade rumors. Pascal Siakam, apparently, Hawks and Raptors have been engaged in trade talks the last few weeks. Regarding Pascal Siakam, but they eventually stalled out due to the fact that the Toronto Raptors upped their asking price, which I don't understand how you can up your asking price in the offseason, because what has changed between those 2 weeks to make his value any higher than it was? Like,
yeah, I guess they sat on it and they felt like they were getting lowballed, but I don't know. It's besides. So
I think the package is pretty good, especially if you're going into a rebuild. Centered on DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, and picks.
I don't think Masai wants to rebuild. I think he'd rather just try to build.
Well, they can't rebuild this year. They can't rebuild this year. They don't have their pick. It's the Spurs have it unprotected, I'm pretty sure. Or
what a bad trade for whatever.
I think it's like top 3 protected or something. Maybe.
I mean, yeah, I guess just maybe they
wanted to make the playoffs so bad and they didn't. They didn't even make it like to the second round of the play-in, dude.
Let's send up picks for Jakob Poeltl so we can make the playoffs, and they just didn't do it.
And the second round
pick, the Jakob Poeltl thing. I just assumed it was for the Kawhi thing. It was Jakob Poeltl.
Jakob Poeltl.
Oh no, it's worse. That's so bad.
It's worse. It makes it worse.
I was confused by Ryan saying that was a bad trade. I was like, they got a title out of it. What are you talking about?
No. And then they sent a second round pick in this draft that just happened, and the Spurs got City Sissoko out of it.
I love that pick.
I wanted him in a Bucks uniform, but we're okay.
Yeah, he is some interesting play style.
Yeah. Plus, he's another French guy, so they got a French duo for the future.
French takeover.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's really not much to talk about that. Raptors are mid, and they never will do anything. So the Hawks are the Hawks, and they.
Yeah. Pascal Siakam is interesting though, just because like I feel like he's made it pretty clear that he actually doesn't want to leave Toronto at all. He loves it there, and also, teams are unsure if Siakam would re-sign with them if they trade for him.
So the report was that he wouldn't want to sign an extension when being traded, which doesn't mean that he won't re-sign. It's just that he wants to hit the open market regardless.
Yeah.
So it's like that makes his trade value lower. Like,
it does.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Like, they're not giving you up extra picks unless he's going to say, I will extend as soon as I'm eligible.
Yeah, which is why I think DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, and picks is like a fine, maybe not like amazing, but it's a solid offer for Siakam. Yeah, Masai is hard to work with. Like GMs around the league have said it for years that they don't like working with Masai because he's stingy and he is just is annoying to negotiate with.
Yeah, well, even last couple of years, Blazers have tried to get OG in or Pascal or something from the Raptors, trying to build around Dame, and that's led to nothing. So I will say though, Pascal on the Hawks moves me a lot.
It moves me too. That would be a great fit for the Hawks.
I actually think they become one of the better teams in the East. Like
they'd be the third best team.
Yeah. Like if they got Pascal, I'd be like they better.
Like Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Sadiq Bey at the 3, Pascal and Clint.
That's a good team.
That spacing might be so horrible though.
Yes, but like I don't know. I still think it's a really
Pascal can hit the corner 3-ish.
Pascal can stretch it.
He's had years where he's been like pretty good from 3.
Yeah. I remember there's one year that everyone was hyping up his corner 3-point shooting, but he was like one of the worst in the league at it. Yeah, I don't know. That would be an interesting team. Sadiq Bey it can be a good shooter and scorer, and Clint Capella can be Clint Capella is really underrated defensively and as an offensive, like on the offensive side, like he can't do much creation wise, but like his screen setting and pick and roll versatility in different areas of the floor and offensive rebounding is very, very valuable.
Yeah, he plays his role really well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, Hawks clearly want to improve. I just don't think they want to go long term. So I think they're trying to figure out ways where they can be really good for the next 2-ish years. And if it doesn't work out, then they can blow it up. So
yeah. Well, they want a way to probably keep Trey in town.
They want to keep Trey Young. Yes, I would hope so.
Yeah. So I think the next couple of years is just like hoping that he doesn't get bored or upset with the mediocrity that's been Atlanta since he's been there.
Yeah. But Trey's never been someone that's really been like even like high school and where he went to college. He's never like someone that like automatically ran to like a really good team when he could.
Like not at all.
So obviously in the NBA it's a little different because you're playing for a lot more, but he'll always get his money there. So
yeah,
can really do.
Yeah.
All right. Last 2 pieces of information before we get into the bulk of the episode here is just some extensions that happened over the last week. Anthony Davis extended for 3 years, $186 million, the largest extension in history. Beat Jaylen Brown 5 days after, which is like it's Anthony Davis, so it's like how much can you really say? Yeah, it is interesting though. It is interesting though because it does show either a commitment to Anthony Davis or we're making sure you have years on your contract if we need to trade you. So,
yeah, this extension broke like right after Mattias and I's 1v1 game. So we kind of talked about it a little bit then, and yeah, I mean, I think this is a good move for the Lakers. Like when AD plays, he's like a top 10 player in the NBA when he's healthy. He is that dynamic of a player.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And I also think there's been talks, I don't know how serious, but the whole issue of maybe Bron's leaving or when Bronny comes into the league, if Bron will just want to play with his son or whatnot. So theoretically, if LeBron were to leave, Anthony Davis has enough years on his contract now you can have him as your one option as like a gap year or 2 to transition to a rebuild and not worry about it, and then trade him as your.
Or try to lure another star with Anthony Davis.
Yeah, true. You're LA.
They can always do because
they will never have issues with getting stars.
Nope.
To LA.
I'm so jealous of big market teams. I'm so jealous of big market teams for that reason. Like we got 3 fans of very, very small market teams.
Yeah,
and it's like I can't even imagine just being like if. Top 5 name insert top 5 player in every single year that might want out. Yeah, the Lakers are going to be on it. I can't imagine being.
It's a different thought process. Yeah, as being a big market versus small market.
Or like even role players. Every single role player wants to play for the Lakers.
Yeah,
when they're good.
Dude, I've had to get hype over Mario Hezonja signings. Okay, like I've had to do some major cartwheels and front flips for coping.
He's LeBron's father, man. Remember when he blocked him and stepped over him?
I do remember that.
He was like, he had like a post game. He's like, man, I'm the king of New York. Those Knick teams were hilarious. Those are some funny Knick teams. Yeah.
And then we had Hart's extension, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
4 years, 80 million, 84 billion.
81. Yep.
It's a good extension. He's one of the better role players in the league. Elite rebounder, pound for pound, probably one of the best rebounders in the NBA, regardless of position. And as a wing guard, he's like the best. And he's very good defender, and he can sometimes shoot. So
and
he had one of the better guard rebounding seasons ever, I think, this year, didn't he?
Yeah, one of the best. Yeah.
There's a year he averaged like 7.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the last years on the Lakers.
Yeah, he also just fits exactly what New York wants to do over there. Like when he was a seamless fit with that Knicks team when he got traded there halfway through the year.
Man, I don't even want to think about the universe where Bron doesn't want to go to LA and like they let all those guys develop. Like, they had a crazy team, dude.
Really good core.
Like at one point it was like the guys they traded was like it would have been like Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma, Zubac was on the roster before they traded him. Who else? Jordan Clarkson got traded before LeBron wanted to go there. That was the season before.
Yeah.
Because he was on the Cavs with him actually. Yeah, that would have been interesting if they didn't trade D'Lo for Brooke Lopez, which was so stupid.
They've had a lot of young talent go through LA, and
they are a very drafting team. That is for sure. And
that's another thing though. Talking about big market fans, they don't have patience for developing.
Yeah,
like, especially a lot of those Lakers fans. No,
yeah, a lot of those young guys developed fine, and at the time, Lakers fans were just like, "Get them out of here. They're not good enough."
Well, they won a title, so I really can't say much about it.
True.
But, yeah, good extension. The Knicks have a really weird built roster, but they'll probably be good again. So
yeah, I will say from a Blazers fans perspective, love Josh Hart, but the trade I think is good on both ends. Paying Josh Hart $20 million off the bench this year would be tragic.
Yeah, that would not be good for the Blazers.
Yeah, and we got Chris Murray out of this, so
which is a good piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then we can get into the main portion of this episode, which we are back with the ranking lists. I couldn't think of the word. We're gonna be doing small forwards today. One of the weirdest collection of players. Overall.
Yeah.
We got this. All of them have been identified as their primary position. On Basketball Reference. There's some guys who overlapped, like Mikal technically overlapped because he played a similar amount of minutes. I'm pretty sure we all didn't put him on because we had him on shooting guards.
Yep.
And some guys that we thought would be on here who aren't, and some guys who there's so many injuries or so many different lineups that they played in that technically they qualified as a small forward when they're probably like if you were to name their position just off the top of your head, you would not think they are. So. All right, awesome. Well, let's get into honorable mentions as we always do at the beginning. 3 honorable mentions that did not make the list, barely made it. Ryan, you can start us off with those.
So my 3 honorable mentions are Michael Porter Jr., Klay Thompson, and Trey Murphy III.
No Klay?
No Klay.
Interesting. What do you got, Mattias?
My honorable mentions are Wiggins, Scotty Barnes, and Buddy Hield.
Okay.
Buddy had Hield, surprising small forward.
Yes, I thought he was a 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who would have been
Same.
Andrew Nimhard?
Yeah. Or Mathurin came off the bench.
Yes. So. My honorable mentions are Buddy Hield, Jaden McDaniels, and OG Anunoby. So we're gonna have some different lists.
Yeah, we've got some variety already.
So I think this one will be one of the. This was a lot less straightforward.
I missed OG. I think I gotta look, but I'll see.
It's all right. All right. Let's start off with 10. Who wants to start?
We'll go Ryan.
Yeah. Number 10, I've got Franz Wagner.
I also have Franz Wagner.
Yeah, I also have Franz Wagner.
Oh wow, look at that. Yeah.
Just as we say it's going to be different, we all have the same guy to start off.
Yeah, I think Franz Wagner is already so good, and like you think about what he can be, like maybe next year, 2 years from now, beyond that, he's a scary player. He really is. Like Franz Wagner, point forward. He's got size. He can handle the ball. He can shoot. I thought his growth as a slasher year 2 was huge. He has this offhand floater off glass that is like it's automatic. I remember I watched a okay amount of Magic games last year just because I like the Magic and I think that a pretty exciting team to watch. And I thought Franz Wagner, his slashing skills really I think they really stood out to me as something that we didn't really see a lot of year 1, but year 2 came around. He really developed that. And And overall, I think Franz Wagner, maybe he doesn't have like the singular skill that a lot of the guys above him on this list might have, or below him even, but he's enough of an all-around player where I think he already warrants a selection on this list.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said. And he's also a really underrated defender. I'm going to fully admit I was sleeping on his defense. Took a look at some of his numbers. Some people are like, you got to look at these defensive numbers, and they're pretty good. He was one of the better defenders on that roster, actually, surprisingly. And you wouldn't think of it because of how what role he was playing, but it doesn't always look like he's that good, but he's really good. Like switch defender, and even at point of attack, he holds his own well enough for rim support to come. So that's always good.
I mean, in terms of friends, you guys kind of all said it. He's just good. I actually think he's probably, as of last year, I thought he was probably their most impressive player. Paulo obviously was great.
Yeah.
But I think there's obvious holes in Paulo's game that we just don't see in France.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I definitely think I've said I've said Paulo's. I think Paulo's their best player, just because of his impact as a playmaker from the front court, and like his scoring was, even though he really struggled shooting a lot of the time, he was still a very good like scorer. Like he averaged 20 points per game, which is like very impressive. But Franz is right there with him, and I really have no problem if you'd argue either one. Okay, then for my number 9, I had Wiggins at number 9.
I had Jade McDaniels.
I was curious to where you put Jade McDaniels.
Yeah,
he was close. I swapped them around on 10 for a while, but I eventually took him off.
Yeah, he started in my honorable mentions, but I just had to push him back. I had Clay.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Jay McDaniels, because you're the only one with him on your 9 list. Obviously, one of your guys, Ryan.
Obviously, yeah, for
So,
sure. Well, I think the reason he's at 9 for me is, in short, he's the best defender on this list. I think you could make arguments for guys like OG and even Kawhi. Even though I think Kawhi is like well past his defensive peak at this point. Jade McDaniels, to me, is quite easily the best defender on this list. And he's also a 40% shooter from 3 off, like, honestly, pretty solid volume. I can't remember exactly how many attempts per game. And he's a great 3-point shooter. And especially later in the season after Cat went down, and especially these few games when Cat and Anthony Edwards went down, Jade McDaniels was averaging like 20 points a game for like nearly a week. His skills as an on-ball creator are seriously like untapped at this point, and we've seen flashes of it, but I think the sky is really the limit for him. But like acknowledging that this list isn't like projection, it's just how they are now. But I think with that on-ball creation and the flashes we've seen, the shooting from the corner, his rim pressure, his cutting, the passing is still very much so a work in progress. But that's not necessarily like a vital skill for players at this position. Just kind of looking through the small forwards, like none of these players are like exceptional passers, I'd say.
Yeah.
I
would agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, offense alone, Jade McDaniels is definitely last on this list, and I'd probably put him below like a lot of the honorable mentions. But to me, that defense is just so good and so menacing that I feel like I had to put him at 9.
He didn't even get all defensive team this year, did he? That's such a
he didn't, which is pretty bad oversight by the voters.
Yeah. All defensive team was a sham this year, man. I don't care, man.
I'm really high on McDaniels. I really like his game. It's just one of those things where he's shown flashes, but a lot of these guys have shown a sustained production at that position offensively for a while.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to go with the flashes, especially because his flashes were only like 8 games, right?
Yeah.
I definitely
I understand anybody who would say that I'm like a year early on McDaniels.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I think you're about a year early.
I completely understand it, for sure.
Yeah. And what would a basketball rankings be without bias anyways? So
Right.
yeah. I agree with everything you said. Who did you have at 9, Mattias? I'm sorry.
I had Clay.
Clay.
Yeah.
I had Clay a little bit higher. I had one up. Do you guys have Wiggins higher at all or no?
No, I had Wiggins on my honorable mentions.
Well, I put Wiggins at 9 because his impact both defensively and offensively was like when he was injured and then when he missed time due to personal reasons, with his father, being hospitalized. It was, you could feel the void of that Andrew Wiggins left on that team. That I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of role players can say that they leave when they're not playing. The creation ability that he has paired with the 3-point shooting and the defense when he doesn't have the ball in his hands was greatly missed. And I think it's one of the main reasons that they were such a poor road team. They didn't have a super strong wing defender along Draymond for most of the season. And they really missed another guy that could create because Clay was struggling creating his own shot for a majority of the season while he came back from his first full season back from injury. And I just think that when your impact is that missed when you're not playing, you have such high value, obviously, to the team that you're on. And I also think that he could be placed on pretty much any roster and start and be a high level player on any roster, regardless.
Not a fan of the term, but he's very portable. Very portable. He can be anywhere.
Very portable. Yeah.
Very portable. I also will say that the Warriors miss his rebounding a lot.
Yes, he's
a
very good
storyline. Big storyline from when he came from the Timberwolves to the Warriors was his improvement in rebounding and that whole watching him in the playoff run, dude. Like some of those rebounds he got in the Grizzlies series alone, I was just like, oh my god,
he was the second best player on a championship team.
Yeah. No, he's really good. I really wanted to put him top 10, but as Ryan was saying, it's kind of a right now list, and it sucks the off the court things he had, but he played very limited amount of games. Yeah, and I just had to.
Yeah, if we were coming off the 2022 season, I think he'd no doubt be like top 8, top 9 in all of our lists with how good he was. Yeah, and it's a good point you made, Geoff, about like the Warriors' struggles, because I feel like there's been so much chatter about like the Warriors' struggles last year, and it's Jordan Poole this, and it's Draymond this, Klay Thompson this, but something that I feel like has gone pretty untalked about is the fact that Andrew Wiggins did miss 45 games from the last year. They really missed his presence, and when he did come back, it was like pretty much immediate where you could see like, okay, this is the missing piece that the Warriors have been missing all year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think also in addition to that, what the Warriors were trying to do with the roster they had last year would work if they had Wiggins, because their death lineup doesn't work if Klay Thompson's at the 4. I'm sorry. Like it does not work at all. Mm-hmm. Like that's just food for whoever's on the other side.
Yeah, the whole death lineup, even going back to like 2015, has been kind of anchored by Draymond, and who the under small 4 has been around a 6'8", 3-and-D wing. It was Harrison Barnes.
Barnes.
Then it turned into a supersized version in KD, but still they've always had this 3-and-D archetype, kind of simple score wing in their system, and they didn't have one at all.
Yeah, their death lineup was any lineup that was out there for those 3 years, so it did not matter.
And something that I love about Wiggins too is, it's definitely a bit of a sad story because I am a Timberwolves fan, and there are a few things sadder as an NBA fan than watching, what your team's player not meet his potential. That's definitely like a sad thing to watch, and but Wiggins, his career revitalization when he went to Golden State, it serves as like a good reminder that, NBA players can miss their draft projections by a mile, and they can still be high impact players and still be very, very good players for like a long time in the league. And Andrew Wiggins, I think, represents that pretty perfectly.
Yeah. I think a lot of people just get it confused when talking about draft prospects, that they have to be the superstar that they are projected to be or whatever. And it's,
any player could be a superstar.
Any player has potential to be a superstar. The number 1 overall pick has the highest chance. Yeah. That's it. Like it has the highest chance to be an NBA player for the longest. That's all it is.
Unless you're Anthony Bennett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could go on about Anthony Bennett.
My favorite clip, one of my favorite montages on Twitter is like Anthony Bennett was a bucket in 2014. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite clips. Okay, at 8, I had Clay. You had him at 9, Mattias. I don't know. You had him in honorable mentions, right, Ryan?
Yeah, at 8, I had OG Anunoby.
I also had OG Anunoby 8. I updated my thing real quick.
Interesting.
Yeah.
As soon as I figured I left him, I had to rush.
Well, let's talk about Clay, and then we can talk about OG, because I didn't have OG on my list, but I did have Clay. And I think the main reason I had Clay is because regardless of his down year with the creation and the ups and downs on the defensive end and the shooting struggles, especially in the playoffs, because the playoffs he was not good in the playoffs. It was very tough to watch sometimes, but Clay also like led the league in 3-pointers made. He still shot over 40% from 3, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yeah, he shot 41% on 10 attempts per game.
That is nuts. That is ridiculous. Actually crazy. That is actually nuts. And the best player on the team missed a lot of games. And the second best offensive creator also missed a lot of games. And the third best offensive creator had his worst season as a rotational player and he still was an efficient shooter, catch and shoot shooter, and he improved as the season went along on defense, learning how to play defense in his new athletic mold because he doesn't have the lateral quickness anymore that he used to. But he's a lot stronger. Like Clay is a lot bigger than he was before, and you can tell. And I just think that Clay's impact, again, with the Clay's ability to be a missing puzzle piece to all 30 NBA teams is like something that I value. If you can go onto any team and be good, like that's speaks highly of you, especially when you're like not a star, because any star could go to any team and be good. But if you can go to any team and be good as not a star, I think that speaks volumes about your ability.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Clay's someone that he's gotten a lot of hate, maybe for some of his arrogance in the media or some things he said, but
which he's spoken on, said that he regrets doing a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, even looking at his playoffs, like he struggled from 2, but even efficiency wise, he still shot 37% on 10.5 attempts. It's not like he was terrible. He averaged 19 a game. Like it didn't look pretty. And I think that's also a thing we saw from Clay is that there were some games where you could obviously see he was not in the rhythm of the game at all. Yeah. And it was ugly. It was an ugly season, very up and down ugly. Yeah. But he had some really good stretches. There was that stretch in the spring where he just caught fire, right? And I believe he was one of the only ones healthy.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. That was great to watch as a WC.
I am very curious about the Warriors overall in the next few years because all of their like entire roster seems like Warriors lifers. But like I don't know how long you can keep that going. So I'm very intrigued to see that.
They're going to have to take pay cuts if they all want to stay together. And Draymond, I think I don't know how much more money Draymond would have gotten if he would have signed with Sacramento, for example. But
probably like it would have been like an extra. How much he signed for? 25.
25 a year. Yeah.
Yeah, he would have got 30.
Yep. Instead. So not that much more if we're being honest, like in NBA money. So yeah, with Clay, I mean, again, it wasn't completely his fault really. Last season, his inconsistency and role in what he was asked to do when Steph was out, and then kind of also have to fill the gaps that Wiggins had left behind in his prolonged absence from the team. But yeah, Wiggins, Clay, I just have these images of these memories in my head of him just looking out of place and out of sorts, I think, a lot during the season offensively. The shooting is always going to be there with him because he's one of the best shooters the game has ever seen, right? If there's one thing that he can do, regardless of how many, lower body injuries he's had, he's going to be able to shoot the ball. But you also have to be honest, the defense is just not really anywhere near what it used to be pre-injury. And I think that does knock him down a few pegs when it comes to this ranking because 2019, 2018 Clay, not only was he one of the best shooters in the NBA, but he could also lock up the opposing guard on nearly any possession if you asked him to.
Yeah.
And also Clay has not put as much pressure on the rim as he used to, also because of the lower body, which maybe isn't a big deal for someone of his position and what he's asked to do. But I definitely think it is a contributing factor, especially when he had to kind of fill that gap that Wiggins.
Which I don't think he would have. I don't think that would even really be something that pointed out as a big flaw if Wiggins played.
Right.
Agreed.
So,
and also about his defense, I will say in the playoffs, his defense looked a lot better. And a lot of that is conditioning, especially for someone that was an elite defender. I want to wait before I judge his defense coming back from injury until this season. He's got a full offseason under his belt, get his legs under him, see if he actually can compete, and then we'll see if his defense is taking the step down. The rim pressure, I think, is 100% issue. And I think you saw that in certain games. Like you said, he looked out of place because he had to settle for jumpers. He just had to throw them up because he wasn't going to be able to get to the rim.
Yeah.
He's so used to taking those shots.
Yeah. All right. Then the next guy that you guys had at 8 was OG Anunoby.
Yeah.
So I'll let you guys talk about OG because I don't really have much to say. I think everyone kind of knows.
With OG, I kind of view him similarly to how we were talking about. Ryan was talking about McDaniels. Offensively, OG's pretty limited. He skill set wise, he's played a very off ball role, and I don't know how confident I am in saying go have him run an offense. But looking at the players on this list, he's a top 3 defender.
Yeah,
and he's an aggressive defender. He's fun. He's entertaining. You know what I mean? He's not someone that kind of just slides and gets in the way. He kind of goes at the ball handler, and it's really, really fun. Really, really fun play style.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, the way I view OG is the same way I view McDaniels, except I think OG is 1 year further along the path, I think, than McDaniels is. And, obviously I'm already super high on McDaniels from what we saw from him his 3rd year. And given what we saw from OG last year, I think it's warranted to have him pretty high because the defense is so good with him. He actually did make all defensive second team for the Raptors last year, averaged nearly 3 stocks a game, 17 points per game, shot the ball efficiently. That's kind of what he does. 6 attempts from 3 a game on, rounding up 39%, super good efficiency. The free throw, he doesn't take a lot of free throws. I wish he would get to the line a lot more, but that's partially because his more off ball role on offense.
Yeah. And I think he just skill wise, I think he lacks some of that creation. Just overall.
Yeah, for sure. So, we kind of talked about Toronto earlier with Pascal Siakam and his, undetermined future with the team. But, I think if Siakam were to find himself on a new team this coming season, obviously Scotty Barnes the game would open up for him so much and he'd have so much, so many more possessions and so much to work with there. But I also think that OG could probably take a leap too, to maybe 20 points per game or even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way you said at the beginning with his limited offensive creation but he's a very good defender, one of the better wing. He's probably a top 5-ish wing defender in the NBA. So I just think from what I've spoken on my list, you can kind of see I really do value the ability to have some sort of offensive creation, especially when the defense is not always pertaining in the best manner. Because OG's defense is obviously very good, but it's really not conveying to a level where it's he has the really high highs where it's like you can put him on someone and he's going to shut down whoever he's on. But also it has times where it's just like he's just a really good defender and nothing else. Like you just
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just how it is with elite defenders in the league.
Yeah.
The name of the game is getting a bucket. And
everybody can get buckets now.
Everyone can get buckets. All elite scorers, even if you put Anthony Davis, OG Anunoby, Bam Adebayo, Giannis, if you put anybody on them, they're going to get a bucket somehow. And if they're hot, they're going to drop 50. Like, you're not going to stop an NBA player on a hot night from dropping 50 points, even if you're an elite defender. And that's why some sort of offensive creation matters. And I think that's kind of why OG kind of sits at 8 for me, because a lot of people would balance the defense a lot higher, but I think just like you said, Geoff, offense matters. There's a little more weight to it.
Yeah, I also think everybody else ahead of him impacted their team in a higher manner, like especially when it comes to their overall complete role on both sides of the court.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're on 7, right?
Yep.
I have Chris Middleton.
I also have Chris Middleton.
I have DeMar DeRozan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Well, let's talk about Chris Middleton then. Down year, obviously. Only played like 35-ish games, very up and down. But he was also on a very strict play schedule and minutes schedule. He was not allowed to play over 25 minutes a game until like the last month and a half of the season. And when he started to be able to play longer stretches and get more minutes, he seemed to get in better offensive rhythm. But the main problem that I had with Chris last year was his defense looked absolutely atrocious last year. And I think it was just that he was still recovering from multiple injuries from the playoffs last year. And I think he re-injured them when he tried to play at the beginning of the season. And I don't think they were fully recovered. So, and hopefully next year it's better. But yeah, I don't know. Chris is a hard player to talk about because he's so good at what he does that it's hard to really talk about it. Because it's like,
everyone knows what he's good at.
He just gets buckets, man. He just gets buckets.
Yeah, he's one of the best 3-level scorers in the NBA. And it's like even coming off a down year, he's still going to be that next year and probably for at least a couple more years.
Yep, and that's why when people talk about the Bucks record next year being down, they won 58 games with him playing 30 games. So I don't really know what people expect. I mean, if he was healthy last year, Giannis is holding an MVP right now, by the way. Yeah. Just so everyone knows. And that we were like a 65-win team. So it would have been a whole different story last year.
And also, sorry to cut you off, but I also think there's a very strong chance that in 2022, if Middleton is healthy that playoffs, they repeat as champions.
Oh, we're repeating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a very strong chance.
We were the best team in the NBA. I mean, it
wasn't that close.
No. Game 6 in Milwaukee, sorry. Giannis had 45, 14, and 6. And the rest of the team combined had 44 points.
Yeah. If you throw Chris in there,
if Chris Middleton is on the court, I guarantee you he gives you 25.
Oh, it's still below that time to put a team away. Chris Middleton's the type of person that
Chris Middleton puts teams away. Okay.
Yeah, it might be a Giannis, Chris Middleton 40-40 each.
Yes. It is time, man. Chris Middleton is one of the best playoff performers in the league. And not forget that. I hope people actually, you know what? I hope people forget that next season. I hope we get in the playoffs and he just dogs.
Yeah,
and it's the Bulls' fault because they have to have the Blackhawks ice underneath their damn court and water before he slipped. He doesn't slip on that random spot in Game 2. Giannis, my team goes back to back, and man, I would have had some nasty agendas to push over the last few years, man.
I will say though about the Chris injuries though, I think him and Clay, are really comparable. I don't want to judge Chris's defense because pre-injury, I don't think he was as good of a defender as Clay was pre-injury,
No.
but he could still very much keep up, and he was not a negative on that side.
Yeah.
And so I want to wait before I judge him too much, but that's a big reason I had DeMar at 7. His defense is not very good, but his offensive game is amazing. And I don't know, it's a hard balance with players like that that can just do everything on one side.
One quick thing about Chris before I move on to DeMar, because I had DeMar at 6, so we can talk about him right away.
Yep.
One more thing about Chris is him, as I am very excited for this new offensive system with Chris in it, because they're going to be playing a lot more pick and roll, and the Giannis Chris pick and roll, as with Chris as the ball handler, has been one of the most efficient scoring opportunities for the Bucks over the last 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And it playing that more is going to greatly increase the half court efficiency of the offense. And it's going to help a lot.
I've always wondered why they don't run that more, because I remember in that 2021 finals, I feel like with Chris as the ball handler and him coming off those screens and just going for those pull-up mid-ranges, he was just kind of crushing the Suns defense with those. Like they had zero answer for him.
Yeah,
man, I can't believe we saw finals with Devin Booker and Chris Middleton going back to back, bucket for bucket, man.
Yeah,
Chris Middleton was like Michael Jordan in those finals.
He had a 40-point. He had a 40-point finals game. 40.
Yeah,
40
yeah.
No.
Not a lot of players can say they've done that.
My favorite Chris Middleton graphic is he has the same amount of like go ahead fourth quarter shots in like the last like 2 minutes as like LeBron does in the playoffs. So
that was during the whole when Giannis was out and everyone was calling Chris Batman. I remember seeing that graphic.
that lasted a week and a half, man. At least a week and a half. I hope Chris is better next year. And also his contract extension, if he plays anywhere close to the level he was playing at in 2022, $33 million a year is a bargain for how good he can be, especially with the salary cap increase, because that's it's a good deal for him. So yeah,
agreed.
We'll go into DeRozan then. So I had him at 6, Mattias had him at 7, so Ryan had him at 6 as well.
Yeah. Yep. I will say I had Chris at 6.
Okay.
Like I said, the big difference was DeMar DeRozan was one of the worst wing defenders in the league this year.
He was awful.
Like you can't even argue that he wasn't bad.
Which if he was a league, and they were like the best they were like the best defense in the league.
Yeah.
And he was like if he was league average, it would have been like a historically great defense.
Oh, 100%. And it's like it's hard because DeMar on the offensive end was amazing. What was it? 26, 16, 5, 25, 5, 5.
Like that.
Great offensive season, but when looking at all of these forwards ahead of him on this list, a lot of these guys can score, and they're 3-level scorers, and I have faith in them producing like DeMar does. And it's just a historically bad defensive season will do it to you. It's hard for me to put it over it.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. I think it was a very interesting Bulls season, obviously. So much changing in and out. They were expecting Lonzo to maybe come back, which everyone knew he wasn't, but I think that was weighing down the team a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Zach LaVine's nagging knee injury that just randomly started and then went away, and Vucevic's up and downs, and the point guard play was all over. And I think DeMar was given such a high offensive load when, like we talked about in the last episode when we were talking about DeMar, like he's not the player that's built to take that high of an offensive load.
No, not at all.
On that good of a team. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens this year, because I think if they're going to, I'm not going to say if, they are going to underperform the front office's expectations. The fans know it. The Bulls fans know it. Other fans of the NBA know it. Like everyone knows it except
other
for
GMs.
The GMs. Like,
yeah,
it's going to be very interesting how he performs and what he's valued at, because this is the last year of his deal, I'm pretty sure, right? Correct?
I don't know off my head.
I believe he's Let me look at his contract.
Either way, I agree. I don't think the Bulls are set up, and I think they're going to underachieve. So if this is the last thing on his last year on his deal, you could see a panic sell
Yep, 1 year, 28 million.
Because because you probably want to get him off the books because if you're worried about him re-signing.
He's a buck, man. He's a buck.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it.
For what? How? Where's the money coming
it would
from?
be Pat Connaughton. It'd be Pat Connaughton, and it's only 28 million. Especially if it's in the offseason, you could sign and trade.
Yeah.
You go back to playing the 2. That'd be a crazy lineup, though. Spacing would be
lineup.
actually horrendous, though.
DeMar DeRozan, Giannis.
It would be Drew, DeMar, Chris, Giannis.
Hey, at least you have
Brooke.
At least you have Brooke and Chris.
That'd be
And
cool.
Drew,
that'd be a fun
Drew,
team,
Drew every other game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every one out of every like 4 playoff games.
Yeah.
Man,
I mean, I feel like there's also not that much to say about DeMar DeRozan because everyone kind of knows what he's all about, right? Like one of the best pound for pound shot creators in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I think with like pretty underrated playmaking actually too. I think he's one of the better. I think he's like one of the best playmakers in the NBA, and like maybe not one of the better playmakers on this list, but I think he's really good at that. And then his passing and the way he's been able to get teammates like involved hasn't been like as eye-catching maybe with the Bulls, but with the Spurs under Pop, we really saw him kind of open up his game to getting people involved more. Not just doing everything himself. And maybe you could say he had like a down year last year, but not really, considering how 2022 was just like an amazing season by all measures for him. And the Bulls were going to suck no matter how good he was. So, yeah, it's kind of like a boring player to talk about almost, because it's like, we know what he is at this point.
Yeah. I was talking about earlier, it's going to be very interesting what happens with the Bulls next year. Zach LaVine, DeMar, this is the last year on DeMar's contract. I would not expect them to want to extend.
No.
They might because they're psychopaths over there. But I'm really intrigued because I think you could get a lot of suitors for Zach LaVine. I think DeMar could probably get you. He might. I don't know what he would even be able to get you, but knowing them, if DeMar does want to walk in the offseason, it'd probably be like a sign and trade, and they would just get another vet, good vet player to just make them still be mid.
Yeah.
So
they're gonna love Drew Holiday. That's wrong. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'd rather have Drew than DeMar. At least he can play defense in the playoffs. There's not much to say about DeRozan. I mean, everyone knows what he is at this point. 5, then I have Brandon Ingram. I don't know if you guys have 5.
Right.
Oh, I've got Brandon Ingram I've got Paul George at 5 actually.
Oh, okay.
I have Paul George at 5 as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you guys have Paul George at 5 then? Somebody guess Ingram's your 4.
Ingram's my 4. Yeah.
Ingram is not my 4.
Oh, Jesus.
I will say a little bit of this is projection because we're in the off season.
Okay.
Fair.
We don't know what we're seeing, and a big thing. I will just looking at the names. I think Jaylen Brown, he's a name that's ahead of this. I think he's gonna have a step back, and I think Paul George, over the last 3 years, we've seen him take periodically a little bit of a step back due to like some efficiency and lack of getting to the rim numbers, and I think that'll continue as age hits him.
Interesting.
I also think the Clippers roster hasn't improved anything that they struggle with, so I don't think that's like an issue that they had scheme wise isn't getting fixed this offseason at all.
Can't disagree there.
Yeah, I think part of the reason that I might have Paul George below Brandon Ingram is just that like kind of what you said, Mattias, is Brandon Ingram Paul George has been taking kind of some minor steps back the last few seasons. Especially like you can never really fault a player for being hurt because when they're hurt. But Paul George, like he really does never play and hasn't played in the playoffs in over 2 seasons now. And also, What was I going to say? Paul George. Oh, also, I feel like part of the reason I might have him low too is just because I'm kind of like over the Clippers. Like they just kind of annoy me as a team, and they just like they just do they have done nothing. They've accomplished nothing, and it feels like the rest of the Western Conference has really passed them by at this point. And I think Paul George is kind of part of that. Maybe in a little ways because he doesn't ever play, and he hasn't taken steps back, especially on defense. I think too, he's been taking steps back, just not maybe involving himself as much as he used to a few years ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Clippers experiment. I think you can look at Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as an example of two similar wings built around well. The Clippers, they aren't providing any like real rim protection or real playmaking or anything next to these guys. It feels like.
Yeah. I don't know. The Clippers are a mess. They're always gonna have a good roster, but it just seems like something's gonna go wrong every year. So it is what it is at this point. Their best shot was 2021, but Kawhi tore his ACL. So,
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Ingram because we completely skipped over him. We almost just forgot to talk about him. Ingram for me, I have him at 5 is because I think the consistency in what he can do well needs to stay. Like he's always going to be consistently very good, but I think there's aspects of his game that are very high level that he does not consistently keep at performing at a high level. For example, his playmaking. I think a lot of the time he can get a little bit caught up in not taking on his playmaking role to the fullest extent that he should be, and scoring as well. I mean, sometimes he's just not aggressive enough as a scorer. And especially when Zion's not playing, he's like the only creator on the roster other than like CJ, but like CJ has taken such a step back, like as a creator. That's just like, do you really want him as your number one creating option out there? And I think that's what led to a lot of the CJ like
hate.
Like, yeah, it's like, who else is doing it then? If Ingram's not going to do it, then who else is doing that?
Yeah,
like
I would say Ingram struggled in and out of lineups though with injury.
Yes,
and
that toe injury for like 3
the whole
months.
Pelicans roster was messed up because even CJ, he was like, I was
who
playing.
Who is his team's medical staff, man?
The Pelicans are a mess. They just are. Yeah, I think when Brandon Ingram did get healthy in the second half of the year, he was unguardable for stretches of games. Like
especially that playing game.
Yeah, he was so good, and every single and as the Pelicans had kind of started to climb back up after falling so low in the standings because of it was like both Ingram and Zion injured at the same time for like 15 games, and they lost like nearly all of those.
They lost 17 of 18 games between between the end of December and the beginning of February.
You're on a huge losing streak.
Roller coaster of a season, because when Zion was healthy, they were the number 1 seed in the West.
Comfortably, too.
Comfortably.
Like, they were so good. And like, I think if they would have even had one of those guys for some of that time, like they probably would have had like 6 to 8 more wins on the season.
No, I agree.
Like, and I wonder where that would place them. Let me look. I'm gonna look at it. You
guys, I'm really high on Brandon Ingram. Obviously, I have a couple of spots higher. As I said, but I think it's one of those things where looking at PG and looking at players on this list, like you said, Geoff, he actually is a very, very good playmaker. I don't know if I want to say high level yet, but he has this, at least from what I've watched, it feels like when he wants to get people involved, he'll just take a step back and he won't do anything and he'll let them run the offense, but he needs to get them involved by running the offense. You know what I mean? And he's really good at it when he runs the offense. Yeah. And I don't know if that's a Willie Green thing that wants it being played through CJ or Zion when Zion's healthy or what. But I feel like we saw it in the little playoff run. The Pelicans are better when Ingram is the main facilitator.
Yeah. Sure. I agree. So last year, the Pelicans finished 42-40, as the 9th seed. They ended up 1 game behind the Lakers who are the 7th seed, and only 2 games behind LA, who was the 5 seed. If they probably would have had at least one of their guys available for that 2-month stretch, you could probably attribute at least 5 more wins, I would say.
Yeah.
That would have put them at the 4 seed last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the way the West was last year, like last year was the perfect year to have some extra games, and going on that losing streak really did take him down quite a way. Yeah. Brandon Ingram, man, we saw in the playoffs against Phoenix in that first round, he was giving that team legitimate problems. And as that first option, Brandon Ingram, I thought was super, super impressive.
Yeah.
His development from his early days in LA to what he is now has also been super impressive. Like, he's answered a lot of the questions about him as a 3-point shooter. I actually wish he'd take more 3-point shots because he shoots them at a high percentage, and his volume has gone down the last 4 years progressively.
Yeah, he has He has the KD issue. Like,
he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets so comfortable. Yeah, he gets so comfortable in that mid range where it's like he would rather just do that every single time and take threes. And I think he should incorporate the 3 a little bit more. He also averaged a career high 5.8 assists last year, and has also taken major strides forward in his abilities as a ball handler too.
Yeah,
he can be a legitimate offensive engine for your team.
Oh, I agree.
And that has not been what he has been previously. I think he could easily be. I had him at 5. I think he could easily be number 3 on this list.
Yeah.
Like, comfortably, if he could stay a little bit healthier and he was a little bit more consistent in what he does. Like I said, Ingram just needs to have a season where he puts it all together for the whole season and stays healthy. And it can't be, I'm going to be a good playmaker for 2 months, and then I'm not going to pass the ball, and I'm going to be a really good scorer. And there's some times where he's just scoring, and there's some times where he's doing both. And I think he looks best when he's doing both. And obviously, growing as a player, like, that's what you do. Like, you learn how to flow. And Ingram's going into his 7th year in the league, 8th. And he's only like 25, 26. He's about to turn 26. He has so much room to grow as a player, and he's had so much development time, and he's still so young. So it'll be interesting. And there's a lot of rumors about the Pelicans trying to switch stuff up. So hopefully, I hope that they keep all of those guys and let them grow and give it one shot when they're all healthy before they decide to play. Like, let them have a healthy season all together, and then if it doesn't work out, then do it.
Yeah.
So
I will say, though, if it's 2 to 3 years down the line and they still don't have a healthy season, then it's like,
yes, 2 years. You have 2 years to get healthy. Otherwise, but Zion is way too good when he's healthy that you don't trade him, most likely.
No,
I don't think you can. Like, I just don't. And like, there was some chatter this last summer about would the Pelicans trade Zion for maybe like
Scoot,
whether that be to the Hornets or to the Blazers. Mattias is making a face right now. I'm interested to.
Because I wish it happened, dude.
Yeah,
Dame's not even gone yet, but I'm already coping.
What if he's not gone though? That's what me and Ryan were talking about earlier today. We were talking about what if he's just there forever?
I don't even know what you do at that point.
No. What if like a day before the season starts, Scoot is just traded for like Pascal Siakam, and then it's just like
that'd be gross.
There might be more riots in Portland.
Yeah. I think it would be Anthony Simons that they would trade.
Yeah, it would
be gone, which sucks because then it'd be like 2 of my favorite players both gone, Wofford and Simons.
Yeah.
God, Portland fan is in the mud, man.
Yeah. So at 3, I have Jaylen Brown, and I think Geoff does too, and Mattias Ingram.
I have BI. Yeah. This one I really struggled with. I flipped them. I revised this list a couple times, but I really flipped PG, JB, and Ingram. I really struggle with ranking.
I I ended up with JB at the top because of the season he had individually as well as team success. Second best regular season team in the league. All NBA, 26 point per game scorer. Is a good-ish defender. His defense gets a little overrated. But I think just that individual season paired with the team success and his impact on that team success just made me be like, Ingram, like I said, the best ability is availability, and Ingram missing so much time literally made his team miss the playoffs.
Yeah, but I also think the Pelicans were kind of a shit show, so I don't think there was necessarily a rush from his medical staff to get him back. So I think a lot of it was they were being safe with him because they had nothing to play for.
Yeah.
And with JB,
still missed the time though.
It's really hard. I think JB gets a lot of unfair hate. Like, I don't want to come across as someone that doesn't think JB's an elite player, all NBA for a reason. But I will say I think his defense is very that's the one part of his game that's overrated. Like, I think BI is comfortably a better defender, and I think BI holds more value to his team, and that was what ultimately had me put him over JB, because I think if you take JB off the Celtics, obviously roster construction matters, but they're not missing him as much at all.
Yeah. I can't disagree. The Ingram at the 4 minutes in FIBA have been interesting. Him getting experience playing that, even if it is in FIBA, I think they can look towards doing that more next season, because the sad fact is Zion's going to miss time. It's just what's going to happen. And I think could be a good lineup of like CJ at the 1, but whatever. Herb Jones at the 2, Trey Murphy at the 3, BI at the 4, and like Jonas at the 5.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a really good lineup for them. So
no, I agree.
Yeah.
With JB, it's really hard because he's one of the few players that actually got so much media attention after the season. Yeah. So it's like I feel like the Jaylen Brown discourse has kind of been beaten into all of us.
It's been pretty bad these last few weeks. Yeah, I really tried to kind of filter out a lot of what happened in that Heat series. Like, everybody is losing their mind about like the clips of him like dribbling it off his foot or kicking the ball. It's like, who cares? Like,
I will say a lot of NBA players are a lot more limited than we think.
Yeah. And he was the best player on a team that was in the finals, like not even
2 years ago
now. Yeah. So
yeah.
We actually did talk about Jaylen Brown quite a bit a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like when he got the extension. So, kind of all of our opinions probably remain the same.
There's a clip of our shortened, condensed version of us talking about that on the channel. So if you want more JB talk, it's JB discourse. I think when you get to some of these players, it's like the discourse is so overdone where it's just like it's not really worth talking about.
Yeah.
2, I have Kawhi.
Yep.
Kawhi.
He's a dog, but he never plays.
Yeah, so, he would be one if he played, honestly.
Again, nothing really to talk about with Kawhi. Everyone knows what Kawhi does and how good he is. One of the most automatic scorers at 3 levels in the NBA, which is crazy to say after all the injuries he's endured and the play style changes.
Seems to never be rusty after coming back from serious injuries. Serious injury after serious injury.
He is a robot.
It's bizarre. It's like he gets better. He's been getting better as a shooter the more injuries he's had.
It's an anomaly.
It's so weird.
Yeah. And then number 1 is Tatum.
Yep.
Yeah. Tatum.
He's really good. Just needs to stop.
He's really good, dude.
Just needs to stop shot chucking threes, please.
Yeah.
Just drive to the rim more, man. You have top 5 potential. Just stop with the shot chucking threes, man. The step back threes killed the momentum of that team every single time, and their whole team is guilty of it. It's not just him. It's not just.
I will say, well, the one negative I could point out, Jason Tatum, because like he's the number 1 guy on this list. Like, he's obviously, everyone knows what he is. His threes, it's like you said, his 3 selection is actually one of the worst in the league. Like,
it's bad. Yeah.
His 3-point openness is bottom percent of the league. He's shooting the most contested shots, and that's not good. So
Yeah.
I would hope to see
It's
the Celtics
really-
get him some better looks.
It's really pretty and it's really cool when they're falling. When
Yeah.
it's not, it's nasty and it looks bad.
Yeah.
This is why they need a playmaker, which is a whole nother discussion. But
Yep.
this is why they need a playmaker.
Yeah.
I do think there is room for some debate between Leonard and Tatum, but you know what? Like
Kawhi doesn't play.
Kawhi doesn't play. That's what's obviously going to take him out of it. But if you compare Kawhi and Tatum pound for pound, I think Kawhi would be better. And I actually do think he would at this point. Like,
Yeah.
It's really close. There's an argument for
It
both
is close.
sides.
I just need the guy to play games.
yeah.
And the Clippers have been a very strong adamant about this load management stuff. It's got to stop this season. It's got to stop. You can have it limited to an extent, but the load management level that's been taken on those top two guys is it's a negative. It's the reason I think their load management has gotten to the point where it's actually negatively affecting them in terms of injuries. I think it's actually making them get hurt more because their body is not being stayed active all the time.
Yeah.
And it's negatively impacting the team win-wise. Their stars are never available consistently. They have not had a singular playoff run where they're both healthy at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what is the point of investing so much into these guys and the team around them if you're not going to make the investment to keep them healthy? Because clearly what you're doing right now is not working.
Yeah. No. And I think ultimately, even if we're looking at these players, I would give the slight edge to Tatum here. And it's just because of his recent success. And I don't want to be someone that to gatekeep players' rankings and success, because it really doesn't matter too much. But he's been, 4 straight Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah.
1 finals trip. It's like he's dominated the East. It's really just been him, Jimmy, or Giannis.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost feel like Jason Tatum doesn't really get talked about enough for what he's done at his age.
Mm-hmm.
He's on path to becoming one of the all-time greats. There's just no way to deny it.
We talk about Luka a lot, already being an early all-time great, and I don't see a lot of people talk about Tatum. You're right, Ryan. That's a good point.
He's on that path.
Yeah,
I think what we were talking about, first player.
Yeah, what we were talking about last week, Geoff, players that'll be remembered differently. I think Tatum's something where people are gonna look back 20 years from now and be like, Jason Tatum was a fucking dog. What were we doing?
Yeah,
I agree. All right, well, that's the top 10 small forwards list. It was a little bit of a confusing one because of the weird players. A lot of it was due to injury minutes, like the Paul George and Kawhi thing. In a normal season, Paul George would be a shooting guard and Kawhi would be the 3, or Paul George would be the 3 and Kawhi would be the 4. But with how many different lineups they ran and Kawhi coming off of injury and then coming back and then Paul George being injured and all of that stuff, they had so many different starting lineups throughout the year that was weird. Same thing with the Celtics. They switched their starting lineup so much last season, with the 2 big lineup, and then they went to the 1 big lineup with just Al Horford, and then they went to the really big lineup, and it was, I don't know. So that was weird, which is part of them experimenting with how the system works best.
That's the reason they made that Brogdon trade, and another reason why they made that Kristaps trade. They just want as much lineup versatility as possible.
Do you think that the Celtics have gotten overly aggressive in the offseason with trying to bring in new pieces every year over the last couple of years instead of just letting them grow?
I think that their offseason following the finals run, I think, was perfect. I think Malcolm Brogdon, obviously the injury concerns are there, but I think he was and still is a perfect fit with that team.
Yeah.
I was half expecting him to start at point guard and maybe have Smart either move to the bench potentially that last summer or even go to shooting guard, which is probably the more likely scenario there. But I think I've talked about it on this pod a few times, how I am not a big fan of what the Celtics did this offseason. I think I just think for every for every question mark they tried to answer, I think they just kind of raised like 10 more.
Yeah. I get that thought process though, because they've been a dominant team. Like they've been to the finals and they've been on the door of the finals and the conference finals a lot, but they haven't gotten over the hump. And it's been 4 straight years now, and I think maybe they're like, we got to try something new. This experiment isn't working. Let's try
Kristaps
something
got
new.
hurt.
But
in
I
FIBA.
also feel like
Kristaps got hurt in FIBA.
That's true. Yeah,
he
he's probably not going to play, or he might not play because of a foot injury. And Celtics fans are kind of having a meltdown right now.
No, I didn't see
Which is exactly what I said.
Yeah.
First
That's
video. Go back to the first
issue.
video we made on this channel.
Yeah.
Our first episode. I had them as a loser, and I said Kristaps and injury history, along with the leadership loss of Marcus Smart, is it's going to be a question mark. Man.
It's rough. Yeah. With the Celtics too, it's like, yeah, they haven't gotten over the hump, but they were very, very close. Like, you think back to that finals. We kind of forget how close they were. They were up 2-1, going into a game 4, and they were a Steph Curry all-time game away from going up 3-1 in the finals, going back to Boston. Or no, they play. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember exactly what it was, but
going back to Boston.
Yeah, they were so close.
They were really close.
All they needed was Steph Curry to not have that all-time great game 4, and they're there.
Mm-hmm. But he did. So,
but he did. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they wanted to keep Smart, and I think they were close to, but Malcolm Brogdon's injury is just too much of a question mark.
Yeah,
and I'm really curious. I'm really, really curious if they'll make a deal at the trade deadline, try to get a playmaking guard, because
like who?
I don't know. There's a lot of cheap, just like
Tyus Jones was really the.
I was going to say a Tyus or a Trey Jones.
I don't think they're going to move him. I don't know why the Wizards would move him. They traded for him to give him opportunity.
Well, Trey
Jones.
Trey Jones.
Oh, yeah. Trey Jones.
I thought you meant Trey Young. I was like,
no, not that. No.
I was like, what?
Sorry.
Whoa. I was like, okay.
They don't need to go get some elite playmaker. Yeah. They just need to get someone that can come off the bench if things are struggling. And
I think
they need a bench playmaker.
And I've been ranting about this a lot on Twitter and on here. The playmaking value decrease is really confusing to me from the guard position, because everyone loves Jokic because of his playmaking and his versatility that it brings. But then all these teams are doing is like, we're not going to fill our playmaking needs.
Yeah, they're trying to match, which is stupid. I do think, though, more positions are getting more skilled.
Yes, obviously. More players at different positions are taking on playmaking roles as the NBA gets more versatile.
Yeah.
But I think when you have a clear lack of playmaking, the easiest way to do that is get a playmaking guard.
100%. And there's a bunch of them. Like in the NBA, the 2 easiest archetypes are scorers or playmakers, for guards at least. But you're either going to find, if you're just some random guard that's a bench level player, he's either going to be a solid scorer or he'll be a solid playmaker.
Yeah.
It's just, and there's no excuse for the Celtics or even someone like the Clippers to not try to target some of those players. But then they keep going for like a Reggie Jackson or a Malcolm Brogdon that doesn't really fill that role.
I agree. It's Bucks fans call it the Drew Holiday problem. You try to make a non-playmaking guard a playmaker, and it leads to them decreasing their offensive efficiency overall. So, yeah. All right. Well, I believe that's all we got today then. Another great episode. Next week, we'll be doing the top 10 power forwards list, which is stacked because of all these weird positional groupings.
It's stacked. It's such a deep list.
So we'll be on the lookout for that back on next Friday. And check guys, keep an eye out for any clips that I upload throughout the week of today's podcast. Any solo videos. Check out Ryan's video that he made a few days ago, ranking the top 40 jerseys. Too much Bucks jersey hate on there, unfortunately.
I I did feel a bit bad about that. And also, while we're at it, before we go, I do want to say that the support on the channel since we started it has been super impressive. Like,
Yeah.
we're at total views. We're at, I think, 2.4 thousand already, and we started this like 6 weeks ago, which is, you know, super impressive. And it like even it doesn't happen. That doesn't happen like that for every podcast or for every YouTube channel. So it's been it's been nice to see. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
It has been. Big thanks to everyone that's come, left views on the video, likes, comments. Still lots of viewers that are not subscribed. So we're you can stay. We're staying consistent. We got extra videos coming out. All of us are college students, so we're very busy in the summer. But once our schedules get a little bit more normalized, there'll be a lot more content coming their way. We're trying to get some more content planned out so we can work around and get all that stuff set up. So, and all of us got some good series that are going to be probably coming out soon.
Working on some individual series.
Yeah.
Also, I've noticed that I've been looking at the analytics, and like we have a very large percentage of our audience from the Philippines. So if you are Filipino, shout out to you. That's what I got to say.
That's
thank you guys.
Yes, of course. Shout out to everyone that's been recurring viewers as well. Big shout out to everybody. It's very helpful to get it out. And then with that, then we can wrap up today's episode. Do all the good stuff that we just talked about. Leave a like, comment down. Some of you, the guys, if you think someone that we left off deserve to be on there, or if you think we're sleeping on one of the guys, let us know below. Subscribe, follow us down on our socials. Check out us on Twitter. Lots of great content on there as well, and all that good stuff. All right, and with that, peace out, everybody. Have a good night.
Peace.
Peace.